And now, our feature presentation.
G'day, mate. Great to see you. Hey, you'd like to know a bit more about the land down under? Funny that me and my friends have got a bottle of a presentation ready for you. Better than a B&S. Enough with the ear bashing. Let's get down to Bizzo. Buckle down for the bush bash with some cut lunch and a coldie. Because you're in for a ripper of a time.
Alright, that's enough with the accent. Let's get down to business. What is Australia? Where is Australia? Why is Australia? These are all questions that will be answered on today's episode of Introtorials, featuring my classmates Lynn, Ronnie, and Aspa. Just as a foreword, some of the audio in this video is going to be of questionable quality. That is as a result of it being a school project, and my classmates don't have access to top-of-the-line audio recording equipment, so enjoy the video. So, where do we start? I guess we could start with some basic facts about Australia. Australia was first inhabited around 65 to 70,000 years ago, and first discovered by Westerners in 1606 at the hands of a Dutch explorer. In 1770, Captain James Cook officially colonized the region under Great Britain. Skipping ahead a little bit, Australia gained independence from Britain on the 1st of January 1901. However, Australia, while independent, is still a member of the British Commonwealth, along with Canada, Scotland, Wales, and New Zealand. The largest city in Australia is Sydney, most well known for its famous Opera House. A common misconception most people make is to think Sydney is the capital, when in fact the capital is Canberra, around 200 miles southwest of Sydney. Australia accounts for just over 7.5 million square kilometers in surface area and has a population just under 25 million people as of 2017. Fun fact, Australia is 0.76% water. Who'da thunk?
The Australian government, also referred to as the Commonwealth of Australia, is the result of an agreement between the 6 self-governing colonies. And they are what the Australians call the 6 states today, which is represented by the members of the Senate, 12 senators each state. The 6 states are members of the 52 states of the intergovernmental organization that is called the Commonwealth, which is the reunion of the ex-British colonies, and are comparable to EU. The terms of the agreement between the 6 states is in the Australian Constitution. That is the set of rules by which the Australian is governed. The Queen is the head of state of the Commonwealth, and that automatically makes her the head of state of the Australian government, where she is represented by the Government Journal of Australia. She is more of a figurehead. She holds the view and has the most important title or office, yet in reality she executes no actual power. She has no power of the nation, and she does not exercise power in her own terms of her own initiative. The Prime Minister is the head of the government and retains the supreme power of the nation. He or she is chosen by vote of the members of the government, unlike countries such as the United States where the president can only serve for 2 4-year terms. Australia has no maximum period for service for a Prime Minister. The Prime Minister can keep their job as long as they are a member of the Parliament and retain the support of the government. The heads of the power are the Commonwealth governments. They possess the legislative power, which is provided to them by Section 52 of the Constitution. The 6 states retain all remaining responsibilities, but each state has its own constitution. Therefore, Australia has 7 sovereign parliaments, none of which can interfere on the function of any other. The election system for the Senate is based on democracy, by which the citizens vote for their own senator. The voting system is optional. There are 2 possibilities: to either vote for one party or for one specific candidate. The advantage of voting for one specific candidate is that you have more impact and more control over which senator wins. The winning party is the one who is building the new government.
Australia is a representative democracy, where citizens govern by choosing representatives in elections that will take decisions on how the country is being run. Australia is also a constitutional monarchy, with Queen Elizabeth II as Australia's present head of state. The federal parliament is located in Canberra and consists of the Queen and two houses, which are the Senate, also called the Upper House, and the House of Representatives, which is called the Lower House or the People's House. It's the house in where the government is formed. The four main roles of the Parliament are to represent the Australian citizens, form the government, make and change federal laws, and keep a check on the work of the government. The elections are held every 3 years, and when it's time for the federal election, the citizens vote for their favorite candidate in their local regions. The candidate is elected to represent the Australian people and make laws on their behalf in the House of Representatives. 150 people are elected as members in the House, and many of them representing political parties. Each member represents one of Australia's electorates. An electorate is an area of the country represented by one member of the House of Representatives, and every electorate has about 150,000 citizens. Every voter will be given a ballot paper where they fill in the boxes from 1 to 8 in order of your choice for each candidate in their electorate. The votes will then be counted by the Australian Electoral Commission, and if someone doesn't give every candidate a number, the vote won't be counted. A candidate needs an absolute majority of votes, which means that the candidate needs more than half of the total formal vote in order to win that seat. And if no candidate gets enough votes to win, the candidate with the least votes is eliminated. And if you voted for the person who got excluded, the votes instead go to the candidate you put as second. This process is repeated until a candidate with an absolute majority is determined. All votes have to be counted twice to be sure there are no mistakes. So whoever has the least votes is excluded, and when someone gets more than half, he or she will be elected to the House of Representatives. A new Australian Parliament is formed after each election. The party or coalition with the support of the majority of members in the House, which means at least 76, will form the government. The leader of the government then becomes the Prime Minister. And if it doesn't become a majority, they may negotiate with other parties or independents to form a majority.
Australia is an example of a country with a written constitution that also includes constitutional law, which can inform how the constitution is supposed to be interpreted. The Australian constitution was in effect on the 1st of January 1901 as a part of the Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act 1900. And it was the British Parliament who passed it. A constitution is a set of rules by which a country or state is run. Therefore, the constitution is the legal framework for how Australian parliaments work, what power it has, how federal and state parliaments share power, and the roles of the executive government and the High Court. It is basically how Australia is governed. This constitution can only be changed by referendum. In addition to the national constitution, each Australian state has its own constitution. In Sweden there is only a national law. Death sentence. The federal government abolished the death penalty in 1973, and in 2010 the federal government passed a legislation prohibiting the re-establishment of capital punishment by any state or territory. In Sweden the death penalty was removed in 1921, but interesting enough, if there was a war going on, death sentence could still be enforced up until 1973, when it was completely thrown out, the same year as Australia's. Life imprisonment in Australia is handed down for serious offences including treason, murder, and commercial drug trafficking. Life imprisonment is mandatory for murder in South Australia, the Northern Territory and Queensland. Life imprisonment is also a mandatory punishment for aircraft hijacking across all of Australia under the Civil Aviation Act 1988. The longest life sentence an offender could get in Australia is the offender's natural life, which is essentially until the person dies in prison. In Sweden, the longest ever received life sentence was 34 years. How laws are set. In Australia they got 3 levels of lawmaking. They got the federal parliament, which legislates or makes law for the whole of Australia. They also have 6 states and 2 mainland territories parliaments, which make law for their own state or territory. And they have over 560 local councils, which make bylaws for their own region or district.
And so that concludes our review of Australia. Good night.